Alright, let's go over some Israeli history. So let's start at the beginning. I'm just going to be looking over some Wikipedia articles here. With the Balfour Declaration. So at this time, let's read the declaration first. His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment of Palestine in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. So this was 1917. So this was a legal document with the partitions of the time. 19 Balfour Declaration map. Let's look at the declaration map. Oh, what the fuck? So this land was promised as a national home for the Jewish people. Now, obviously, this was backed down. This was backed down quite a bit. It got backed down until the Jews had this land and the Palestinians had this land. This was in 1947, of course. But originally, it was declared as a national home for the Jewish people. Now, obviously, this was backed down quite a bit. The Arabs were like, why are you creating a land for the Jews here? What the fuck? We hate the Jews. We want a pan-Arab nation in this area. So because of that, there were a lot of protests over this sort of thing. There were a lot of protests. Where is it? 1929 Palestine riots. There was a lot of anti-Semitism. They didn't want the Jews there, but there was a lot of immigration of Jews into this land. Now, actually, before this, there were not a lot of people living here. It was marshy lands. There you couldn't grow much. This was undeveloped lands at the time. So then the Jews come in, the Arabs come in as well. Everybody basically moving into this area for the first time around 1917. So, and then there's a lot of uprising here because there's Jews moving and they don't like Jews here. The Arabs don't like the Jews. They want to have this pure Arab nation in this area. And there was constant appeasement to the Arabs by the British as well. This is one example of it. There was, right before World War II, and we know what happened in World War II to Jews. Right before it, there was the White Paper of 1939, which effectively limited immigration to the area, or limited Jewish migration to the area. Basically, trapping the Jews in Europe during Nazi reign. So this was a pretty disgusting act, keeping out Jews, but it's what the Arabs wanted. The Arabs didn't want any Jews to come, and Britain appeased their wishes. Now, let's look at some Jewish land purchase. So this is largely empty land. There's not that many people here. This is 1944. There's not very many people here. Look at that. There's nobody living there yet. I think this looks like West Bank. This looks like Gaza. Yeah, there's not many people living there yet. And Jews, obviously, they moved in, bought more land, and at this point, it was largely through just purchases. It was largely legal purchases. I don't think there was any land theft until obviously 1948 when the war breaks out. Well, then eventually there's the new partition of 1947-1948. That time, here it says 1947, but I know the Israeli independence was 48. But so yeah, first Arab-Israeli war. This was after the partition. This was when Israel declared their independence. Immediately, all these Arab countries are like, oh fuck no. You guys can't have Israel. This is our land. We're creating this pan-Arab nation. We don't want any fucking Jews here. So they attack immediately. They initiated the wars. And when you initiate the wars, that's your problem. What happens? You got to defend. Your job is to defend your own people. Now after this, Israel goes in and takes some land in the West Bank, and in Gaza as well. They get a lot more land. And they create settlements there. This is the big problem that a lot of people talk about. But here's the thing. If you initiate an attack on somebody trying to wipe out their nation, you have every right to defend your nation and punish the other nation for it. To say, don't do this again or we're going to punish you more. So this is back when Israel had balls. This is back when Israel defended their right to exist, as all these countries were attacking them and trying to deny them their right to exist. So let's keep going. Oh, I forgot to record this. We'll look at it. I'll clip this later after the stream gets uploaded. So over time, there's more stuff, and then there's I think the second Arab-Israeli war was due to the Suez Crisis, basically when Egypt nationalized the British Suez Canal at the time, and now obviously Egypt has been very aggressive to Israel over time, starting with the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, and because of that, they jumped in this war to stop Egypt from gaining more land in that area, which they would inevitably eventually use to attack them in the future. So this thing happened, the Suez Crisis. You can read more about this on Wikipedia. This is probably the most complicated issue. And around this time, this one I've been struggling to understand fully what was going on. But I think I basically understand what happened at this point. Essentially, there was a nationalization of the Suez Canal by Egypt. Britain came in, France came in, defended the land. Israel also came in and defended the land, and Egypt had largely been at war with them, doesn't want Israel to exist. Because of that, Israel has a right to defend itself. Do you not agree that countries have the right to defend themselves? I think we all can generally agree on that. Now let's talk about the Lavon affair, because this was around that time. Actually, this is before. So this is generally considered a mistake. It's referred to Israel as the unfortunate affair or the bad business. Like, people are not big fans of this. This dude had to step down afterward. He was forced to resign. So, this is largely recognized by Israel as a mistake. Now, this is one example. The fact that, looking at the Lavon affair, people are so critical of Israel over it. This is one example of a double standard held for Israel and when compared to other Arab nations. This is a clear example of a double standard. You name me any country in the Arab world, and I can give you 10 Lavon affairs for that country. So anyways, let's keep going. Actually, let's talk about the settlement some more, because I don't think I fully touched on it. So there were obviously some Palestinians forced out. There are people whose properties got taken away. Now, a lot of it was because there was a war. People literally, these properties were used to attack Israel, to deny Israel its right to exist. So Israel, obviously, being a country that's defending itself from countries that don't believe in its right to exist, pushes some people out. Sure, they certainly push innocent people out as well. But that blood is on the hands of the aggressor. This is an important principle when you're thinking about war. That blood is on the hands of the aggressor. And now let's look at who was the aggressor. Israel gets its independence after the partition of 48 or 40. It says 47 on here, but this war happened in 48, and Israel actually got its independence in 48. So Israel has a right to defend itself, and Israel has a right to exist as well, because it is the most rights-respecting nation of the time. And obviously you get your right to exist based on your ability to respect rights. And as we can see, just looking at Israel, comparing it to Palestine, comparing it to all the other Arab nations, Israel respects rights better than all of those nations. And you get your right to exist as a nation, as a state, by protecting rights better than what it was beforehand, or better than what the alternative would be. America got its right to exist because it wanted to defend rights better than the British Empire was in that region. I would say America, the Revolutionary War, was just. Now, the Civil War, were the Confederates in the right there? I would say no. I would argue that the Confederates were not in the right, because they were establishing a new nation to protect the right to hold slaves. So and this goes back to the fundamental reasons of why we have a state at all. Why do we establish a state? Why do we have the right to establish a government? And it's largely because we want to defend individual rights. So yeah, what else should I talk about? So yeah, people were forced off their land. Obviously, that was a thing. Now, every single Western nation, but basically every nation in the world violates property rights. In general, every nation in the world does. Israel violates Palestinian property rights. They also violate Jewish property rights, Israeli property rights. America, eminent domain. We disrespect property rights quite a bit. So, just saying they don't respect property rights isn't a unique claim against Israel. And Israel obviously protects property rights a lot better than most of the other than most of the other Arab nations, than all of the other Arab nations. And they also protect Palestinian rights. They protect Palestinian rights better than Palestine itself protects them. I mean, look at how Arab nations treat their citizens. But they're in Israel. I don't live in Israel. They're in Israel. They allow Palestinians to work in government, to obtain economic success, to have general property rights. Now, during the wars, they obviously force people off their lands. And I would argue that that's justified. And that blood is on the hands of the aggressor. It's on the hands of the Arabs, the people who attacked Israel and denied its right to exist. And now, let's talk about how Jews were treated throughout most of the rest of the Arab world. I wonder if this is on here. Yeah, right here. Jews were forced out of Arab and Muslim countries. And Israel accepted them right into their country. Now, how are we going to compare a country that largely has a... Wait, let me find the demographics of Israel. I think I have this in here as well. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. Religion in Israel. How are we going to compare a country that has... Where the fuck is just the Okay, where the fuck is the 20% Palestinian statistic? Percent of Palestinians in Israel. Yeah, 20.95%. I'm surprised I didn't save this to my bookmarks. Let's throw that in there. Where's the stat? There it is. 20.95% of the country's population is Palestinian. So they largely let people stay if they want to. Now, there's some people that left. There's obviously some people that got forced out during the war. And it's war. Stuff like that happens during war. But they largely allow Arabs to stay. And also, let's compare that. Compare how Israel responds to Jews getting forced out of Arab and Muslim countries, which it was all of them pretty much, versus obviously not all of them in Israel getting forced out. Now, there were some that got forced out. They're considered refugees to this day. The descendants of people are still considered refugees. The Arabs aren't being accepted into the other Arab countries. They're just considered refugees that get asylum status because of their refugee nature. But the Jews just accepted them, made them citizens. So which country seems more moral in this situation? I'll leave that for you all to judge. A country that defends Arab property rights and forces out Arabs in areas that are attacking them, or countries that just force Jews out of their country. I'll leave that up to you to decide. Now let's talk about the 6-Day War. So this war obviously began because of a preemptive strike by Israel. Now, why did Israel strike? Well, because Egypt is amassing troops on the Sinai Peninsula. And if you see a country amassing troops right up next to your border, where there was recently a crisis that sparked the second Arab-Israeli war, the Suez Crisis, They're amassing troops here. You have reason to believe that they're going to attack. You have reason to believe that you should be on defense. So, obviously, Israel launches a preemptive strike and begins the 6-Day War, where Israel just destroys the fucking Goyim. So yeah, I would say Israel's pretty justified in that. And then after that, they take their land. They take this land. They take a bunch of fucking land, and they just give it back right away. They're like, okay, we don't want this land. We want peace. So here, have this land back, and just make sure that there's some peace. King David hotel bombing. Let's look at that. A militant right-wing Zionist underground organization. Bomb in the hotel. So this doesn't sound like an official Israeli attack. This sounds like a terrorist attack by terrorists in Israel. It doesn't sound like... Am I wrong on this? This is an underground Zionist organization. This is not like official Israeli people attacking this hotel. Now, I disavow this. This is a bad thing, obviously. But this is not Israel attacking people. Like the 1948, that was like a whole cabal of fucking Goyim attacking Israel. Unprovoked, just because they got their independence. You can't say, oh, there was a hotel that got bombed, so now Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen are all attacking Israel now because they declared their independence. Like, that's stupid. You can point to like these very... Oh my god. This is fucking... Good lord. Wait, I should probably save that to my bookmarks, so that's an important thing to remember as well. Where were we? We were at the 6-Day War. I missed the USS Liberty incident. Let's talk about that a little bit. So this was largely considered to be a mistake. Fog of war, that's what the courts decided it as, and yeah. Obviously a mistake. Obviously not a good thing. But courts ruled it to be a fog of war incident, and who am I to go against what the courts judge? You can argue that it's a Jewish conspiracy, but that's not the sort of people that I want to listen to right now. But let's keep going. Well, who is this dude? What the fuck is this? I don't remember why I saved this one. Oh, it was someone who got captured. Oh, I see. Yeah, I remember talking with somebody about this, and I probably saved it because of that. But yeah, largely what we can see throughout history with this is that the Arabs, they don't want Israel to exist, and Israel is the most rights-respecting nation in the region. Just sort of a summary of all this. They don't want Israel to exist, so they attack them. And now Israel makes some mistakes. They're at war with somebody. And I agree, they make a few mistakes. The Levant affair being one of them. The hotel bombing is probably another one, but I don't think... That sounds like it was an underground group, which it literally says at the beginning of the Wikipedia article. Obviously, Israel makes some mistakes. They violate people's property rights in their country. Obvious. That's but every country does that. Now, they're at war, so they have the right to force people out of the country and punish the enemy for their initiation of force. Obviously, this should not be that difficult of a topic. And I really do get confused why people seem to have this double standard for Israel when compared to all these other Arab nations that violate their people's rights at a way higher degree than they do in Israel, and don't believe in Israel's right to exist, and because of that they constantly attack it. I mean, you can go, like, sure, Israel has did some bad things before that war as well. There were Israelis who did that, but also there were Palestinian riots, in obviously the 1929 Palestinian riots being one such thing. So there was obviously conflict beforehand. But when we look at what happens, Israel gets its independence, then immediately all the Arabs unite to attack Israel. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to start repeating myself at this point in time, so I don't want to... I mean, I guess we can keep going throughout the history. Like, after this, there's just a lot more... Like, it doesn't seem like there's much of note that happens after the 67 war. Obviously, there's the 2005 removal from Gaza. We can talk about that, but we can talk about all the stuff that goes on from there, but it's mostly just, terrorism, more war, that sort of stuff. This is like sort of starting with the beginning of the history, seeing how the conflict began, I think is more important than going through the entire history, looking at this sort of thing. But we can talk about in 2005, where is that? Where is it? Here it is. No, not that one. Fuck, what the fuck? Israeli disengagement from Gaza. So in Gaza, in 2005, I mean, okay, so actually, we could talk about the Oslo peace accords too. Yeah, so that, I mean, that there were people trying to make peace in 1990. That obviously went south. There were some far right people who were there was a far right assassination in Israel by some Zionists who I don't think we can attribute that to the Israeli government. It was literally a assassination of an Israeli government officer, which had some problems. And I mean, largely the Palestinians won't accept a peace deal. So Israel is just like, okay, fuck it, we're just unilaterally disengaging from Gaza. Hopefully we can get some peace because we're giving you something. We're giving you something here. We're disengaging from Gaza. And nope, they elect Hamas, keep shooting missiles at them. They just use it as a launch pad for more missiles, for more rockets. So I mean, this event right here seems to be a summary of what happens. Israel constantly tries to appease to the Palestinians, and the Palestinians just use it as an opportunity to attack more. So what Israel should do, Israel should stand up for its right to exist. Should not constantly appease. These people aggressed on them and are refusing to disengage, refusing to stop aggressing. If Israel had a moral backbone, this would not be the controversy that it is. Tiago says, plus Israel is a menace to the U.S. They constructed nuclear bombs against the U.S. because it... What are you talking about? Holy shit. Nuclear weapons against U.S. I don't see anything. Can you send me like a link or something? Oh, what up, Bruno? How you doing? Like I don't see any evidence for that. Trying to attack the U.S. They're largely her ally in the region. We're very much aligned with Israel. Now, one thing I should make clear though is I don't think that the U.S. should be giving aid to Israel or like doing their bidding in the Middle East to the extent that they do. So I think largely some of those claims are overemphasized, but like I believe in American first foreign policy. Now, I think Now, I have some disagreements with the people who generally condemn Israel. I think Iran actually is a fucking threat, because that's a whole other topic, but, they are the number one funder of terrorism in the region. They're an inspiration to the terrorists because they see that terrorism, Islamic totalitarianism has a state. They had a deal not to have Samson option. Let's look at it. Samson option. Deterrent strategy and nuclear weapons of last resort against the country's military is invaded. Yeah, man, I'm not anti-nuclear weapons. Like, if you need to use nuclear weapons to wipe out your enemy, I'm all for it. I think, so here's my foreign policy, my general foreign policy philosophy. I think we should largely stay out of conflicts until it's a direct threat to us. But if it is a direct threat to us, we wipe out the enemy. And be done. We have a moral backbone and say, no, you attacked us, and because of that, we're wiping you out, and then we're leaving. We're ending this conflict quick. And here's the thing, Israel could do that, and they could completely wipe out the enemy, and the blood would be on their enemy's hands, because the person who provoked the attack is the one who... Yeah, the country that provoked the attack is the one who has the blood on their hands, is the one who bears moral fault for all the actions. But it is what it is. Yeah. Oh, Iran and the Saudis. Yes, I hate Saudi Arabia as well. I should mention that. Saudi Arabia, we should not be allies with Saudi Arabia. Iran and Saudi Arabia are the two biggest funders of terrorism in the region, and are largely our enemies in the region. If terrorists attacked us on 9/11, and there's largely been a lot of problems with terrorism and a lot of threats to the U.S., and because of that, we have to find a way to take out the terrorist problem and get the fuck out. It would take a day. It would take no American lives. And here's another thing. The fact is, by not wiping out Palestine, by not taking out the Palestinians once and for all, Israel is sacrificing the lives of their citizens to save some Palestinians, and that I view as fundamentally immoral. If we have the ability to take out, let's think about this with the U.S. and Japan back in World War II. I think the U.S. made the right decision nuking Japan. Why? Well, if the U.S. hadn't nuked Japan, Japan would continue to kill more Americans. And fundamentally, by not taking out Japan and obviously having those innocent lives get killed, you are sacrificing innocent American lives. You're sacrificing them for Japanese lives. It's the same thing with Palestine and Israel. And with that, I think I've essentially summarized what I think has to be done about this whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I got a debate on Sunday with Ryan Dawson, which should be fun. Thanks for the recommendation, Tiago. But with that, I think we are good with that. Oh, you know what I should show you guys? Look at my Amazon history. Oh, Tiago, you're going to love this, dog. You're going to love this. Oh, where is it? Fuck. Where is it? Where is it? Look at what I fucking bought. Let's go. Yo, if I get this before my fucking debate with Ryan Dawson, that'll be fucking legendary. That'll be legendary.